that they need not necessarily comply with, and then they can't build their pipelines because nobody, certainly in my part of the world, wants anything to do with ones like the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline because they do not have social license because the government has tried to jam them through without any public involvement.
This concludes the time for government orders. Déclaration de député.
Statements by members.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, if anything demonstrates the need for this House to quickly pass Bill C-26, our conservative legislation for tougher penalties against child predators, it's the decision by the Toronto Liberal Party to introduce sweeping changes on how grade school children are taught sex education. This curriculum was written by someone charged with 2 counts of distributing child pornography, 1 count each of making child pornography, counseling to commit an indictable offence, and agreeing to or arranging for a sexual offence against a child under 16. As a hand-picked Liberal provincial deputy minister, this powerful party insider was caught only after an international online probe. If it can prevent 1 child from being groomed for exploitation, this Liberal policy must be withdrawn. On behalf of the parents, grandparents, and the vulnerable children of Ontario, we demand the federal party leader order this outrageous policy be withdrawn now.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, the people of Beauport-Limoilou are talking to me about their challenges that they have in their daily lives, including housing. You know that access to social housing in the Quebec region is on the decline, and the situation is particularly alarming when we know that 1 out of 3 people in Quebec have to put 30% of their income towards their housing. According to National Household Survey of 2011, the gap between rents and salaries is increasing. The federal government assistance for construction for affordable housing, not very much in the first place, for a G7 country, is constantly decreasing and has been for 20 years, from 1.3% of the budget in 93 to 1% today. So we need to massively invest in housing in order to provide housing for Canadians in financial situations that are precarious. Housing is a right.
For Mississauga South.
Mr. Speaker, last Sunday, Julianne Moore won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her portrayal of a college professor suffering early-onset Alzheimer's disease. Still, Alice is a powerful story of an accomplished and engaged professional, fighting to stay ahead in a race she knows she will eventually lose. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia in Canada. It is also a progressive and irreversible disease. Sadly, there is no cure. The number of Canadians living with it is expected to double by 2031, and women represent 70% of new cases. Our government understands the tremendous burden that dementia can place on those it touches, as well as on society in general, and has invested over $220 million for research into Alzheimer's disease and related dementias since 2006. Government partners include the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, the Women's Brain Health Initiative, and Baycrest. Ms. Moore has said in her Oscar acceptance speech that people with Alzheimer's deserve to be seen so that we can find a cure. I agree, and I encourage all Canadians to witness this performance that is very much worth seeing. Thank you.
Wonderful.
The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow is the Global Day of Action for the Education is Not a Crime campaign to dramatize the painful reality that education is a crime for the Baha'i community. A case study of the persecution and prosecution of the Baha'i, Iran's largest religious minority, who are treated as non-citizens, devoid of fundamental rights, including that the Baha'i are arrested for their beliefs at an alarming pace. Violent attacks on the Baha'i continue to go unpunished amidst a culture of impunity. State-sanctioned incitement to hatred of the Baha'i has dramatically increased tenfold in 2014 alone. The 7 Baha'i leaders continue to suffer arbitrary imprisonment and torture and detention, and where the trial of the 7 is the trial of the Baha'i community as a whole. Mr. Speaker, the Iranian government has made being a Baha'i a crime, but we can change that. We can give voice to their rights. We can tell the Iranian government, as Bishop Tutu put it, that banning the Baha'i is hurting Iran and the Iranian people. As former Iranian-Canadian political prisoner Mazahar Bahari put it, and the slogan for this global campaign, we can light a candle on their behalf. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Yesterday, I extended an invitation to colleagues to join an international network of legislators committed to advocating against religious persecution and supporting religious freedom for all. Last June, a small group of parliamentarians gathered together in Oxford. An agreement was reached to begin to build a wider international coalition. This plan became a reality in Oslo in November 2014 when interested MPs from around the world met to launch the International Panel of Parliamentarians for Freedom of Religion or Belief. The pledge was to work together to see an end to belief-based persecution. Members of IPP4 hold various political perspectives, diverse religious beliefs, and hail from many different countries. These currently include Argentina, Brazil, Burma, Canada, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Germany, Italy, Malaysia, Nepal, Norway, Pakistan, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and Uruguay. What we share in common is our belief in the importance of freedom of religion or belief. We're committed to see those freedoms strengthened worldwide. Again, I extend the invitation to any interested legislators to join.
The honourable member for La Salle-et-Marne. Mr. Speaker, in honor of International Women's Day, which will be soon on March 8th, I'd like to commend the women of La Salle-et-Marne. They're dynamic and committed to community organizations. Through their work, they encourage young people, help families in need, and offer programs of activities for seniors and people who live in isolation. Whether it's at the Centre du Vieux Moulin, Corporation de l'Espoir, the TDS de la Salle, the Cercle des Fermières, or in the Southwest Caregivers Group, they're always ready to listen to the community's needs.
I want to salute the women of La Salle-et-Marne who volunteer for numerous causes at HoC Food Bank, at the Legion, at the Action Center, and in other cultural associations. You bring comfort to people in need and help build a better community. Les femmes de La Salle.
The women of La Salle-et-Marne are resilient, optimistic, and they bring people together. They're caring and creative. I salute them and I thank them for the work they're doing to continue to build our community, a community where no one is left behind. The honourable member for Stormont Dundas South Glengarry. Mr. Speaker, I am so proud of my riding and the many marvelous groups and organizations doing great things there. Our local Francophone community in Cornwall is an excellent example. I'm honored today to welcome residents of the Francophone community of Cornwall. Today on the Hill, the Cultural Centre of Cornwall is presenting a major project they undertook with local high school students. To celebrate the International Day of the Child, the students of La Citadelle High School and their teacher, Madame Josée Poiry, can put together a campaign of unique artworks. Each student, using a chair, chose a theme they wanted to illustrate, and as well as the style in which they wanted to convey it. Quite simply, their work is magnificent and unique. I invite my colleagues to go to the Speaker's Salon to see these marvelous artworks immediately following question period. Thank you.
Member for Edmonton East.
Mr. Speaker, ecclesial leader of great repute, a proponent of Orthodox unity, the devout head of the worldwide Ukrainian autocephalous Orthodox Church, passed away on Tuesday. Metropolitan Methody stood for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people from the Orange Revolution to Euromaidan. He advocated for unity of Orthodoxy in Ukraine. I met with Metropolitan Methody in January in Kiev. For hours we discussed Ukraine and Orthodox unity. He believed that Orthodox unity would lead to greater social and political stability in Ukraine. Ukraine, indeed the world's orthodoxy, lost a great ecclesiastical leader on Tuesday, a pious man of the people. On behalf of Canada, I'd like to express sincerest condolences to Metropolitan Methody's family, his ecclesial colleagues, friends, and everyone with whom he had a human and spiritual connection. Memories eternal.
The honourable member for Newton North Delta.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate the students of Burnsview Secondary School in my riding of Newton North Delta. Following a project about social change, these students wrote personal essays reflecting on their lived experiences. They have published these essays in a book, which will be on sale at their school next week. Proceeds will go towards a new playground for children living in a transition house in Surrey Newton. Mr. Speaker, as a teacher, parent and grandparent, I make no secret of the fact that young people are my inspiration, and the efforts of these students demonstrate why. To the students at Burnsview Secondary, I applaud your project. Your passion and commitment to a better future for your generation is commendable. You are leaders in our community, and we as adults are learning from your example. And I also take this opportunity to recognize all the amazing teachers that do an awesome job every single day across this country from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for York Centre.
Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to welcome B'nai B'rith Canada to Parliament Hill today. Led by a team of experts, they are here to testify before the Human Rights Subcommittee regarding the threat posed by Iran. Their message is clear. Iran is one of the world's leading sponsors of terrorism and the driving force behind international terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. The Iranian regime also continues its attempt to acquire nuclear weapons. This despotic regime has repeatedly threatened to wipe Israel off the map. Israel, like Canada, faces many threats. Canadians are being targeted by terrorists simply because they hate our society and the values it represents. That is why it is so important to hear from an organization like B'nai B'rith, which since its founding in 1875 has been engaged in combating anti-Semitism, bigotry and racism in Canada and abroad. Canada does not sit on the sidelines when our values are threatened, as some would have us do. Therefore, we are grateful for the leadership and insight organizations like B'nai B'rith Canada have shown. I know all of us on this side of the House like to thank B'nai B'rith for their commitment to the values that make Canada the best country in the world in which to live.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Mount St. Joseph Hospital has an emergency department that is staffed by excellent medical professionals. However, it is severely overcrowded and under strain. The emergency department was built to handle 14,000 visits per year. It is now seeing over 28,000. Up to 3 patients are being housed in rooms built for 1, and physicians are treating patients in the hallways. There is no proper isolation capability, a serious concern for control of infectious disease, and patient privacy, proper medical histories, and staff safety are being sacrificed. The hospital requested $24 million from the provincial government to build a new emergency department. Unfortunately, this funding was refused by the BC Liberals. MSJ provides the only emergency department conveniently accessible to East Vancouver residents. Because the department is only open until 8 p.m., residents are put at unnecessary risk as they are forced to travel to Burnaby or the west side of Vancouver to receive emergency care. I request the federal government to work with its provincial counterpart to ensure this important facility can better protect the health of Canadians.
The honourable member for Peace River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is committed to lowering taxes and keeping them low for all Canadians. With a strong leadership of our Prime Minister, we will balance the federal budget, and we are continuously putting forward measures to help Canadian families do the same. We are proud that 11 million Canadians of all ages and income levels have opened an account allowing them to save tax-free with the tax-free savings account. We introduced the TFSAs as a way for Canadians to save for retirement, for their children's education, or for them to be able to save to put a down payment on a house. The vast majority of accounts belong to low and middle income earners, but the Liberals and the NDP will raise taxes and will reverse these benefits. They will implement a carbon tax that would hurt the Canadian economy and kill Canadians' jobs. Mr. Speaker, the facts are clear. Only our Conservative government can be trusted to keep taxes low, and that's exactly what we're doing.
The honourable member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker,
marks the closing ceremonies of the 2015 Canada Winter Games, which were hosted by the city of Prince George, British Columbia. The Games showcases Canada's sports excellence, sportsmanship, health, and active living. This year's 17-day national competition will have welcomed about 2,400 of our best athletes in 19 sports, from alpine skiing and hockey to table tennis. Mr. Speaker, I wasn't aware that table tennis was a winter sport.
It is.
Run by volunteers, the Games have been a huge success. a result of a remarkable collective effort that has increased the gratitude of all Canadians, because it's undeniable that the Games give our athletes a higher profile and stimulates regional economies and offers a high quality of entertainment to the entire country.
It's from Etobicoke North, the Liberal spokesperson for sports, and the Liberal Party of Canada. I congratulate everyone.
The Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government stands with and for Canadian families. That's why we implemented the family tax cut and enhanced the universal child care benefit. Under this plan, 100% of families and children will have more money in their pockets to spend on their priorities and their family. The average benefit for each of these families will be $1,100, with the vast majority going to low and middle income households. Meanwhile, if given the chance, the NDP and the Liberals will impose a job-killing carbon tax and reverse our tax cuts. This Conservative government is delivering the largest tax breaks in Canadian history, and we're proud of that record, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Southwest.
A new right-wing political party is haunting the land. A party hell-bent on sending Canadian jobs to the U.S., while cheerleading American Republicans on the Keystone Pipeline, while looking the other way on climate change. A party that thinks that Canada-U.S. relations should be more like they were under Ronald Reagan and Brian Mulroney. A party so easily browbeat in lining up behind the latest attacks on our fundamental freedoms. A party that writes off manufacturing jobs and believes in big corporate tax cuts. Is this a new Reform Party? A new alliance? No, Mr. Speaker, of course, it's the Liberal Party. Under this Liberal leader, the views of middle-class families are being drowned out by oil lobbyists and CEOs. Progressives in places like Toronto are being ignored, while the Liberal leader falls in step behind draconian Conservative laws. Canadians deserve better. They deserve a party of principle that will stand up for civil liberties, the environment, and Canadian jobs.
Honourable Member for Nipissing-Temiskaming.
Mr. Speaker, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, our government will balance the budget and put money back where it belongs, in the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Our family tax credit and enhanced universal child care benefit will give 100% to families with kids on average of more than $1,100 per year to spend on their priorities. Families in Nipissing, Temiskaming, and across Canada will receive nearly $2,000 per year for every child under 6 and $720 per year for every child between 6 and 1. The Liberal leader will reverse our tax cuts and will do exactly what the Liberal leader elites always do, raise taxes for ordinary Canadians while handing that money over to bureaucrats. Moms and dads don't need to be told how to spend their money. Our Conservative government is the only party Canadian families can trust. And with our family tax cut and benefits, we're proud to be standing up for their future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative government pledged in 2010 to improve oversight of national security agencies. They also promised a mechanism to ensure that the RCMP and CSIS are accountable and obey the law. It's 4 years later, and still nothing. How can we trust this government with C-51 when it doesn't even keep its own promises? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have national oversight agencies that are strong, independent, and do a very effective job. It is not the time to attack police and national security agencies. It's time to attack terrorists, and that's what this bill does.
What this bill does, it's all about expanding
expanding powers, but there are no improvements to oversight. And the Conservative record speaks for itself, because 4 years after promising to fix critical gaps in national security oversight across federal departments, well, the Conservatives have done absolutely nothing. In fact, they've actually weakened oversight by shutting down the CSIS Inspector General.
Yeah, that's right.
So how can they now expect Canadians to trust them on this sweeping and overreaching legislation?
Hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we have broad and effective oversight agencies that exist today. They've been recognized as such. On top of that, we have additional oversight measures through the courts put into this legislation. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are not going to trust oversight with a party that has opposed every single piece of security and anti-terror legislation ever proposed. Now is not the time for the NDP agenda of attacking the police and the security agencies. We have serious problems in this country. Now is time to take on the terrorists, and that's what we're doing.
Indigenous women and girls have gone missing or have been murdered in Canada. Families of the victims are coming together today in Ottawa to prepare for tomorrow's National Roundtable. They're looking for answers, and they're looking for concrete, coordinated actions. But so far, all they've heard are the same empty lines from this government. So will the Prime Minister take the opportunity that is offered to him today? Will he listen to the families? Will he change his rhetoric and finally recognize the need for a national public inquiry?
Hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The government has been acting on a multi-pronged action plan to deal with this problem, beginning first and foremost with cracking down on violent crime, but also funding shelters and family violence preventions to protect women and children, dedicated RCMP project teams, the development of community safety plans, supporting a national centre for missing persons, Mr. Speaker, providing additional investigative tools for the police, providing additional rights for Canadian women who live on reserve, matrimonial property and human rights. Now's the time for action, not for more NDP studies.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi Bay James and Navikayu.
It's not an either-or choice between investment and an inquiry. Families deserve both actions to end this crisis and answers that could help them get much-needed closure, Mr. Speaker. So I want to know what this government is still waiting for to finally commit to concrete actions with their provincial and territorial counterparts and call for a national public inquiry.
Bravo. The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Well, as the Prime Minister just said, we are taking action. So whether that be safety programs on reserves, whether that be providing matrimonial property rights to Aboriginal women, or maybe that might be just making sure that they have a supportive shelter to go to when they're in their time of need. Now is the time for action, not for another study like the NDP want. Now it's the time to stand up for these women who have experienced these violent crimes.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi Bay James and Navikayu. Mr. Speaker, Section 35 of the Constitution seeks to protect Aboriginal rights. Most Aboriginals believe that Bill C-51 threatens this protection. Mr. Speaker, too often I've seen police forces qualify our demonstrations as illegal so that they don't have to worry about lumping us in with terrorists. Will the minister finally acknowledge that C-51 is unconstitutional and endangers the rights of First Nations? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, once again, first, we have the greatest respect for Aboriginal peoples and the rights of all Canadians. But we also have the responsibility to counter terrorism and violations of the criminal code. We invite the member to consult Bill C-51, where it is clearly stated that peaceful dissent activities are not covered by the bill. And so I would urge him to read the bill. And if he needs help, we can go to committee. Instead of filibustering, let's talk about it in committee.
Monsieur le Président, ça fait...
Mr. Speaker, The recession ended 6 years ago, but there are 140,000 more jobless Canadians than in 2008. Last year, the government bragged about creating 186,000 jobs, but then had to admit that the number was only 120,000. The Bank of Canada says that 200,000 young Canadians are underemployed or living with their parents. Does the government really believe that it has done enough for Canadians and jobs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the end of the recession, the Canadian economy has created over 1.2 million jobs. It is one of the strongest job records among industrialized countries. Mr. Speaker, that is our record. Those are the facts. We don't want to increase taxes as the Liberal Party wants to. We are not open to increasing the deficit and the debts of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we take action that gets results.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of facts, in the 9 years since this government took office, job creation has been half of what it was in the 9 years before. The recession ended nearly 6 years ago, and still their jobs record is anemic. Last year, they first bragged about creating 186,000 new jobs, but had to admit it was actually one-third less than that, barely 120,000 jobs, and that was down from the year before, which was down from the year before. Why is the government such a failure at generating jobs?
Great. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth, and Canadians know this, Mr. Speaker. Canadians know we are not living in another decade. We are living right now in one of the most troubled world economic environments. And in spite of that, Mr. Speaker, this government has overseen the creation of 1.2 million net new jobs. Mr. Speaker, we have done that by pursuing sound economic policies, reducing taxes, focused investments, balancing our budget, all of the things the Liberal Party opposes, all of the things the Liberal Party would reverse to give us the kind of results we have in Greece. We'll never have that here.
The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Well, he wouldn't recognize a balanced budget because he's never met one. There are 140,000 more jobless Canadians than 6 years ago. Job quality is suffering. York University says low-wage employment in Ontario has jumped by 50%. The OECD says Canada is the third worst country in the world for crappy jobs. This government's former employment minister admits wages have barely kept pace with inflation. The Bank of Canada says 200,000 young Canadians are underemployed and living in the basement. Is that good enough for this government?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is this. The vast majority of jobs created under this government are full-time, they are high-paying, and they are in the private sector. The statistics on this, Mr. Speaker, are absolutely clear. It's why Canada has one of the few middle classes in the world whose incomes have been going up, Mr. Speaker. That's the difference between economic policy now and back then when he was doing it and budgets were followed by police investigations.
The Honourable Member for Squamish Wanda Fuca. Order. 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 We've moved on now to the Honourable Member for Squamish Wanda Fuca.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are watching the debate on C-51 carefully. They want parliamentarians to do their jobs, to review this sweeping bill thoroughly, and to allow Canadians who want to be heard to appear before the Public Safety Committee. Why do the Conservatives want to ram this bill through the committee when there are significant problems with this legislation? In 2001, 19 meetings were held on the Anti-Terrorism Act. Over 100 amendments were adopted. Can the Minister explain why his Parliamentary Secretary refuses to give C-51 equal attention?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if Canadians are watching the debate on C-51, they will wonder why. Why is the NDP obstructing a democratic process, Mr. Speaker? There are more than 48 witnesses, Mr. Speaker, I'm told by my member. There are more than 9 sessions, Mr. Speaker. My counterpart, the Minister of Justice, and myself are ready to appear with the departmental official, Mr. Speaker. Why is the NDP obstructing a democratic process and preventing us from protecting Canadians, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've agreed to seek nights, weekends, during the break week, whatever it takes to have a full study of this bill. But we've never called for a delay. Today, we heard alarming news that 6 young people have left Canada to join ISIS. Police already have the power to stop people from traveling abroad to commit terrorist offenses. What we don't have is a plan to counter radicalization and to stop our young people from turning toward extremist ideologies. It's exactly nowhere in this Conservative bill. Why are the Conservatives ignoring the need to act on counter radicalization?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
The elements of Bill C-51, Mr. Speaker, will allow us to eradicate people who might be radicalized upstream, Mr. Speaker, before the fact. So why are the NDP opposed to listen to some 50 experts, the Minister of Justice, myself, and our experts from the Department of Justice and the Department of Public Safety? What are they trying to hide? Why are they afraid of democratic debate, Mr. Speaker, on terrorism? And Canadians are waiting for us to deliver the goods by June to protect them against the terrorist threat. The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. This is a bad bill, Mr. Speaker, and is the Conservatives' fault. What do they have to hide? 6 young people left Quebec last month to travel to Syria. The authorities believe that they have joined jihadi groups. We all share the pain of their parents and the father who did everything he could to stop them from traveling abroad. Canadian families and communities feel abandoned. In the United States, President Obama has a real plan to counter radicalization on American territory. So why are the Conservatives doing nothing to help parents who are worried about their children falling prey to radicalization? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, for years, our government has put in place a strategy to fight terrorism. And the primary pillar of that is prevention. We meet with cultural communities, Mr. Speaker. Our RCMP officers and police officers reach out to communities. So why did the NDP oppose this strategy, Mr. Speaker? Why are they preventing our government from putting in place the tools needed to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker? I urge them to stop filibustering and obstructing our work so that the committee can hear from witnesses and go forward. Order, the Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. The truth, Mr. Speaker, is that there is nothing in Bill C-51 to offer hope to parents who are dealing with the radicalization of their children. The Conservatives are more interested in scoring political points than in preventing radicalization. Mr. Speaker, we need a serious study of Bill C-51. We've offered to sit evenings and weekends if necessary. Why is the minister afraid of submitting his bill to in-depth scrutiny? What does he have to hide? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Why, Mr. Speaker, why does the NDP want to prevent intelligence officers from stamping out activities on hate-filled websites? Why do they want to deter terrorists from boarding planes? Why do they want to stop us from meeting with parents to prevent their children from falling prey to radicalization? We, on this side of the House, want to prevent imminent attacks. Mr. Speaker, I encourage the members of the Public Safety Committee to move forward with the study of this bill in committee so that we can develop an important bill to protect Canadians against terrorism.
Order. There's still far too much noise during questions and answers. I'll ask members to come to order. It's increasingly difficult for the chair to hear. The Honourable Member for Hull-Elmer.
Because of Social Security Tribunal backlogs created by the Conservatives, seriously ill citizens must wait months for their disability benefits. The Auditor General himself is concerned about the situation and we'll ask the Conservatives for an explanation. Will the government finally realize that it is responsible for this monumental mess and that it's time to put an end to these interminable backlogs? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that the wait times are unacceptably long, and that is why my predecessor ordered his officials, his experts, to look at all cases at the appeal stage now to settle them before they get to the tribunal. That will allow us to solve them much more quickly. Our goal is to eliminate the long-term wait list before the end of the summer. I spoke with my officials last week, and they said that we are on the way to accomplishing this task.
The Social Security Tribunal has been a disaster since the very start. The Conservatives failed to properly plan for the transition. They stocked the tribunal with patronage appointments. They watched as the backlog grew and wait times stretched to more than 7 years. And they denied faster hearings to people who are dying and financially broke. The Auditor General has now said he is investigating the program. Does the Minister understand that offering a few people settlements doesn't make up for years of epic mismanagement?
Mr. Speaker, the plan is not to offer a few people a settlement. Rather, my predecessor came up with a common-sense action plan to have specialists within the department look at every case that is currently under appeal and find those for which we could find a speedy resolution without even having to put them before the tribunal at all. This is a fast and common-sense way to reduce the waiting list. Our goal is to have the long-term waiting list eliminated by the end of the summer. I talked to my officials last week, and they indicated to me that we are on track to do that.
The Honourable Member from Newton, North Delta.
What the Minister still doesn't seem to realise that Canadians are suffering because of his government's mismanagement. Take Peter McClure. He was denied benefits even though he is dying of lung and rectal cancer, because he was told his condition wasn't quite severe and prolonged. Then the tribunal refused to hear his appeal quickly, even though he has less than a year to live. Now he is spending his final days without income. Where is this government's compassion for Canadians like Peter McClure?
Mr. Speaker, these, of course, are very difficult cases. We're talking about the Canada Pension Plan Disability Program. The fact is that we have a plan in place now to address the backlog by using specialists within the department in order to resolve as many of the outstanding appeals as humanly possible. That will reduce the number of cases that have to go before the tribunals. And in so reducing it, we believe we can eliminate the backlog by the end of the summer. As I said earlier, my officials indicate that we are on track to achieve that goal.
The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Conservative boasts about going after tax cheats have gone from the ridiculous to outright dangerous. Estimates just released by this government show more Conservative cuts to Canada revenue, an additional $56 million in cuts. And this is after having fired 3,000 staff at the agency. Here's the first rule in fighting international money laundering, is you can't catch the tax cheats and the money launderers if you don't have the investigators. Now the agency will have to review another 10 million files. How can the minister justify these new cuts to the very people we need to go after tax cheats and international money launderers?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said repeatedly in this House, this government has zero tolerance for tax evasion. Our record on this is excellent. We have combated tax evasion. We have been tough on tax cheats, including helping with our international partners obtaining information. Since forming government, we have introduced over 85 measures to improve the integrity of our tax system. And as to auditors, we actually have increased auditors in this area, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Rivière du Nord. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, FinTrack will transmit to the CRA 10 million declarations on transfers of $10,000 or more. But the problem is that the CRA has 3,000 fewer employees than in 2012 to process these new declarations. Decidedly, white-collar criminals have nothing to fear from this Conservative government. How can the Minister of Revenue claim to be making tax evasion a priority when she has fewer staff to review information, tons of information received by her department? The Honourable Minister of Revenue.
This government has zero tolerance for tax evasion. We've been very clear about that. We even have a special department dedicated to dealing with international tax evasion. Our voluntary disclosures of international tax assets has been growing exponentially because of our measures. We've brought in an OTIP line that is fielding hundreds of calls. We've taken many measures, and the NDP and Liberals have voted against every single one of them.
Oh, shame. The Honourable Member for St. Paul.
The Legal Strategy Coalition on Violence Against Indigenous Women released a comprehensive review of 58 relevant reports and found only a handful of over 700 recommendations have been implemented. The coalition says that only a national inquiry will have the scope, resources and accountability to ensure the implementation of an effective and coordinated action plan to end the violence. On the eve of tomorrow's roundtable, will the government finally get on the right side of history, listen to the premiers, Aboriginal leaders, experts and families, and call a national public inquiry?
The Honourable Minister for the Status of Women.
Well, Mr. Speaker, having met with many of these families, what I can say is what they want is action, and they want it now. They don't want to wait for another study or actually even read another study. What they would like is to be supported, protected, and preventative programs put in place. And that's what this government has done, whether it's been safety programs or the matrimony or property rights for women, which the opposition vote against, taking away an essential right for women. We're here to support them, and we'll continue to do that.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, getting U.S. approval for the Keystone Pipeline is very important for our economy. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister's bungled this critical file. He thought he could bully President Obama, but got vetoed. He did. Brian Mulroney could have gotten it approved with Ronald Reagan. Jean Chrétien could have gotten it done with Bill Clinton. Why has this Prime Minister failed to do his job and protect Canadian interests?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Wow, there's a zinger, Mr. Speaker. This is not a debate between Canada and the United States. It's a debate between the President and the American people, the majority of whom are supportive of this project. Keystone XL will create jobs and strengthen energy security for North America, and the State Department was clear. This project can be developed in an environmentally sustainable manner. It's not a question of if. This project is a question of when. We'll continue to be a strong advocate for job-creating projects and other pipeline projects, and boast about our approach to responsible resource development.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's failure to move the yardsticks on Keystone is a direct result of his refusal to adopt stronger, credible environmental policies. Canada is suffering because this government is a global climate change pariah. Will the Conservatives now admit we need to build public trust to grow our exports? And will they work with the premiers to put a price on carbon?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to help the translators with that, but I didn't have to by the end of the question. That is code for the Liberals introducing a national carbon tax which will increase the price of, well, everything. Mr. Speaker, Keystone XL will create jobs and strengthen energy security for North America. And the State Department was clear. This project can be developed in an environmentally sustainable manner, and we will continue to support this project and our approach to responsible resource development. Thank you.
Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are worried about pandemics and communicable diseases, but instead of investing to improve public health, Conservatives have cut billions in funding. The estimates have now revealed that Public Health Agency Canada budgets is being cut by 7.7%. This includes a $53.5 million cut to health promotion and disease prevention, and the sunsetting of a major program for hepatitis C survivors. How can the minister justify these cuts to such vital public health services?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member's just wrong. In fact, in terms of the Public Health Agency of Canada, our spending on health security has actually nearly doubled since 2010. And of course, this year we'll see quite a bit of an increase coming through the Public Health Agency of Canada because of our numerous investments for Ebola preparedness, whether it was the unprecedented vaccine and treatment clinical trials that we're funding all over the world, or supporting provinces in their community preparedness for Ebola, both on training and the equipment necessary that they needed, or on the public awareness campaign that we launched on Ebola to help fight stigma for healthcare workers.
Not have it updated.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. In Canada, some 240,000 people are living with hepatitis C. The treatment for this kind of disease vary, and people have different degrees of access depending on the region. A program to improve treatment was cut by the Conservatives at a time when we need funding more than ever to promote health and fight diseases. How could the Minister of Health have thought it would be a good idea to cut $50 million from the Public Health Agency's budget? Honourable Health Minister.
Is wrong. That's the bottom line. She's referring to estimates, and these are all they are is estimates. In fact, we'll see an increase in the Public Health Agency funding. In fact, our spending on public health security issues has doubled since 2010. The Public Health Agency is very active and engaged on the issue of Hep C, particularly through the Canadian Institute of Health Research on research to support those that are suffering from hepatitis C.
Not have it updated.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. 25,000 prospectors and investors in the mining sector from some 100 countries will be meeting in Toronto, and every year the government waits till the last minute to decide whether the mining exploration tax credit will be extended. This year there's a lot of uncertainty because the federal budget has been delayed. This uncertainty is deep dampening investment in Canada and in my riding. Will the government decide to extend this tax credit and stimulate job growth?
NDP's
Honourable Minister.
Mining. I think so, Mr. Speaker. Rather ironic, because when it comes to the mining exploration tax credit, they voted against it every single time. Make no mistake about it. First of all, we applaud PDAC, the largest mining conference in the world, and we wish them all the success. Our government is a supporter of Canadian mining footprint around the globe, responsible resource development. We continue to lower taxes, reduce red tape, open new markets, and create the conditions for companies, for mining companies, particularly those in the extractive sector, to succeed in Canada around the world. We have the lowest overall tax rate for new business investments in the G7, and that's giving Canada's companies, our mining companies, a distinct advantage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, starting this weekend, more than 25,000 people from around the world will gather in Toronto for a global mining conference. Canada is a world leader in mining, but the Conservatives have failed to support mines here at home. The flow-through tax credit is set to expire in March with no budget to renew it. And we've still seen no commitment to help unlock the potential of the Ring of Fire. Why are the Conservatives leaving Canadian mining companies and communities in uncertainty?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
These lob questions coming from the NDP today, Mr. Speaker. Every time we've tried to introduce an initiative for mining, they voted against it every single time. And make no mistake about it, people across Northern Ontario are well aware that the Leader of the Opposition refers to mining and refers to forestry as a disease. They'll account for that later next fall. In the meantime, we'll continue to support responsible resource development in Canada, strengthen the conditions in which they operate here and abroad.
Well said. The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's suite of policies, low taxes, global trade opportunities, investment policies, and a skilled workforce have kept Canada's auto sector competitive among global leaders. Over a year ago, our government made a strategic investment in the Oakville Assembly Plant that has helped to transform it into one of Ford's most innovative facilities. Can the Minister of Industry please explain how our government is encouraging investment, strengthening Canada's economy, and creating high-quality jobs for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
We've had a series of good news announcements from the auto sector, Mr. Speaker. Chrysler has announced that they're investing $2 billion more into Windsor. Honda is investing more into their facility. We have Ford, which is going to be building their new GT in the province of Ontario. The Chevy Equinox, their new generation, is going to be built as well in the province of Ontario. And today, Ford Motor Company announced that they are going to be further expanding their footprint in Oakville, creating 400 new jobs in Oakville, full-time, good-paying jobs in the auto sector. They're doing this in part because of the investment that we are working with them on, but it's also because we've kept taxes low and we've opened global markets for Canadian autos.
The honourable member for Châteauguay Saint-Constant. Robin Young, who was in the Army, had a brain tumor removed and is now under treatment to restore her vision. The department is refusing to provide financial help for this treatment, even though the Army made errors in her diagnosis. How can the minister deny her needs and claim that things are going to change on his watch when he's continuing to neglect the needs of our veterans? The honourable minister.
As that member well knows, Ms. Young is an inspiring young reserve officer, and I know that the Minister of National Defence addressed her sad situation yesterday. In fact, her mother, Pearl, is a veteran, Mr. Speaker, and their family is really an example of the tremendous generational service that many military families have. I know I will work in close concert with my colleague, the Minister of National Defence, to ensure that cases like her are addressed while they're in uniform, and certainly the investments we're making for health care and vocational rehabilitation for veterans after they leave uniform will continue.
The honourable member for Sackville, Eastern Shore.
The problem, Mr. Speaker, is that yesterday in the House of Commons, the Parliamentary Secretary said, and I quote, that the Minister will do everything and commit everything to helping her through the crisis. Well, this morning the family got an email from the Lieutenant Colonel in Victoria saying they're not prepared to do anything to help her in terms of her accommodation or her food allowances when she gets there. In fact, they even questioned why she's coming to Victoria in the first place. The reality is it was D&D that did the misdiagnosis. They did an operation on her that was not required. They've ruined her life. Now she's asking for basic help to get her life back together. Well, the Minister of National Defence now tell this House and tell the family that he will ensure that she gets all the help that she needs when she gets to Victoria.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, of course it would be inappropriate to talk about the details of someone's private health care matters. Having said that, I have instructed my department to cover all of Captain Young's medical expenses related to her present condition, and going back to before the Department of National Defence was made aware of her condition. If there are any other outstanding medical claims, I encourage her to submit them to the Armed Forces, who are providing full support for her medical and rehabilitation costs. And the matter is under close review by the Canadian Forces Health Services Group, and all of the medical decisions involved are, of course, a priority for that group, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Churchill.
Mr. Speaker, Amnesty International's annual report highlights systemic violations of the rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. The report identified shameful behaviour from the federal government, including being the only country to take issue with outcomes from the UN World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, and of course refusing to take action on missing and murdered Indigenous women. Will this government pay attention to Amnesty International, the international community, and end these systemic violations against Indigenous peoples in our country?
Mr. Speaker, as stated many times before, we remain committed to working with Aboriginal communities on our shared priorities. Since 2006, giving women living on reserve the same matrimonial property rights which that member and her party opposed. We eliminated the discrimination clause in Section 67 of the Human Rights Act, which again they oppose. We've taken concrete actions to try to improve the life on reserve by investing, and every time they've opposed those measures.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the list of violations goes on. According to Amnesty International, this government has placed more importance on developing natural resources than on respecting the rights of Aboriginal peoples. Amnesty also deplores the discriminatory behavior and chronic underfunding for child protection services in First Nations communities. This is shameful. Will the government respond to the report and finally uphold Aboriginal people's rights? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, Amnesty International's report is one thing. We're not going to get alarmed about it, but we are going to continue to invest the resources that we need. And obviously, anyone can see that there are changes needed, but we have brought in changes to matrimonial property rights and other measures that the opposition has always voted against. And even to help with clean water and so on, they have opposed that. So we're going in the right direction. The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, voluntary disclosure programs under the Canada Revenue Agency helps taxpayers to give information before the agency takes steps, and then they pay the taxes instead of getting penalized. The agency has a list of 1,859 Canadians who have hidden millions of dollars in Switzerland. So this is not a voluntary disclosure. Why is the government treating them this way instead of prosecuting these people? Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the voluntary disclosure program has been extremely successful. We have unprecedented numbers being driven toward that program, and that is a good news for tax administration of those who are trying or have in the past not fully disclosed their tax affairs. As far as, for instance, the CRA's files from related to HSBC from France, I've said before, 154 were duplicates, 801 contained $0, 394 were deemed high risk, and they're being worked on.
The Honourable Member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Federation of Agriculture and the Canadian Young Farmers are in Ottawa. I've met with many of them this week, and they tell me there's a great future in agriculture. But their biggest concern is how this government is treating them, especially the business risk management programs, which have been cut by over $200 million per year. With so much potential for agriculture, why are the Conservatives cutting this very important funding?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I had the great opportunity to speak to the reception of the CFA the other night. I know the member was there as well. And the warm welcome that we received as a government for the great job we're doing on front lines of agriculture. And, of course, business risk management programs are demand-driven, Mr. Speaker. And when there's no demand, there's no program. There's no need for it. The last 2 years have seen record profits to the agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker. That member should be celebrating what we're doing.
Celebrate. The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, staff at the Atlantic Regional Treatment Centre for Mentally Ill Prisoners in New Brunswick have been notified that the centre will close April 1st. 45 of the total capacity of 50 beds at Chepody are currently occupied, and we are told that current and future inmates with severe mental illness will be transferred to Archambault near Quebec City, where 100 of 119 beds are already occupied. Can the Minister confirm that he has ordered the closure of the Atlantic Regional Treatment Centre for Mentally Ill Prisoners?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we sure our government have an action plan to deal with mental health throughout the country, and I will look into this matter. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Acadie-Bathurst. Mr. Speaker, the upcoming closure of the Chepody Health Centre at Dorchester may increase deaths among psychiatric patients. The closure also involves relocation costs for families and the loss of dozens of jobs. How can the government even justify closing Chepody when it is overcrowded? How can he expect us to believe that it makes sense to reduce the number of beds when Correctional Services Canada is already having a hard time dealing with inmates' mental health issues? The Honourable Minister. Well, to begin with, Mr. Speaker, I want to correct something that was said. The number of people with these problems is actually decreasing in our facilities, and we are reducing the crime rate. We have a 5-point plan that is being applied in all penitentiaries, not just those that help people with psychiatric problems. We have a strategy where we take into account people's situation and illness, and we help those with mental illness. But it isn't just there that we have people with these problems.
Mr. Speaker, it seems every day we hear of new reports of barbaric atrocities that are committed by the jihadist terrorist organization ISIL. Sadly, today is no different. According to the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, ISIL fighters have now abducted at least 220 Christians in northeastern Syria. The deliberate targeting of religious minorities is absolutely unacceptable. I ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs if he would provide Canada's reaction, please, to these latest crimes committed against humanity by the organization called ISIL.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canada condemns these abductions in the strongest possible terms. This is just another proof that ISIL's endgame is to establish an Islamic caliphate across the region. We cannot allow this to happen. It's with the utmost sadness and outrage that I also should report that ISIL fighters have abducted 100 Sunni Muslim tribesmen near the city of Tikrit in Iraq. These abductions are outrageous. This is why we have deployed Canadian armed forces and why Canada will not sit on the sidelines while jihadist terrorists threaten the world and indeed civilization itself.
The honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, measles and pertussis are fatal. A generation ago, diphtheria and polio caused death and disability. Vaccinations eradicated these diseases, but now, in parts of Canada, 40% of children aren't vaccinated, putting themselves and others at risk. Now, this Prime Minister silences scientists who disagree with his ideology. So telling parents to listen to scientists and vaccinate is incredible. He must act. Will he use some of the millions he spends on self-promoting ads towards a public education campaign on the scientific benefit of vaccination?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Speaker, that is a ridiculous assertion. The Prime Minister himself spoke loud and clear about the need for parents to vaccinate and the benefits of immunization, not just here at home but abroad, at the same time announcing multi-millions of dollars for those in foreign countries where there are no public health system. Here in Canada, Mr. Speaker, basic immunizations are covered for all children. We have many, many campaigns and resources available to parents to educate them on the benefits of vaccination, and we encourage parents to vaccinate their children.
The member for New Westminster Coquitlam.
The Conservatives have made devastating cuts to the Coast Guard in British Columbia. The Ucluelet Tofino Marine Communication Centre is now set to close on April 21st. The same centre that just a couple of weeks ago helped save the lives of 4 fishermen. And the Vancouver Centre is next. Shore-based readiness, marine communication and traffic services, and search and rescue are all being cut. Why are the Conservatives closing these centres and putting the Coast Guard and mariners at risk? Why are they abandoning the BC coast?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is committed to ensuring that the Coast Guard has the tools it needs to provide Canadians with world-class service, and Mr. Speaker, that means the BC coast. We'll be phasing in a modernization of MCTS centres across the country as we implement new, advanced technology, Mr. Speaker. Better, more efficient service.
There you go. The Honourable Member for Ottawa Orleans.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Juno Beach Centre has just given us the sad news that Ernest Côté, the Second World War veteran, died last night at the age of 101.
Can the Minister of Veterans Affairs please comment on the passing of the valiant Ernest Côté?
And the Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I just learned the sad news of the passing of D-Day veteran 101-year-old Ernest Cote last night in Ottawa. A proud Vendoux veteran, Mr. Speaker, who served in the Normandy campaign and became Deputy Minister of my department, Veterans Affairs, after the war. He was one of the 50 recipients of a flag from the Prime Minister on Flag Day for his tremendous life of service to Canada. A personal highlight of my public life, Mr. Speaker, was seeing Mr. Cote at 101 park his walker and walk onto Juno Beach last year. I'd ask all members of the House to thank the Cote family for his tremendous record of service to Canada.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the Minister and Member for Lévis-Bellechasse said that Davie Shipyard had to prove itself in order to obtain federal contracts. In fact, Davie has just won the Lloyd's List Award as the North American Shipyard of the Year. The workers have made major concessions to save the company. So will the government commit to finally give Quebec its share of future contracts, for example, for the Diefenbaker icebreakers and the supply ships? Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have a new shipbuilding strategy which will ensure more than 2,000 jobs. We've had a large-scale competition that is being done transparently and fairly. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthur-Matka. Mr. Speaker, in the answer given to municipalities in my riding criticizing unilateral changes to Post Canada, rather by Post Canada, the Minister of Transport is using the same old refrain of lower mail volumes, but says nothing about the economic impact, the loss of services, and so on. She's washing her hands of all this. She's saying that, she's saying that she listens to the municipality, so why not start right away and have genuine consultation?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member will know, that Canada Post is an arm's-length crown corporation that makes decisions about strategic decisions about its future and its operations on a day-to-day basis independently of the government. They have a 5-point plan which they are putting into place in order to ensure the continuance of daily mail in this country. And Mr. Speaker, the municipalities have spoken on this particular matter at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities on a motion to restore door-to-door delivery for 1/3 of Canadians. They voted 2-1 against it.
That concludes the question period for today. I would like to draw the attention of honourable members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Valerie Docherty, Minister of Community Services and Seniors for the province of Prince Edward Island. I have the honour to inform the House that a message has been received from the Senate informing this House that the Senate has passed the following bill. Bill C-22, an act respecting Canada's offshore oil and gas operations, enacting the Nuclear Liability and Compensation Act, repealing the Nuclear Liability Act, and making consequential amendments to other acts. And it being Thursday, we'll now have the Thursday question from the Honourable Member for Burnaby New Westminster.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I've got good news for all Canadians, and that is that there is only 11 sitting weeks in the life of this Parliament and in the life of this government before Canadians will actually have the opportunity to cast their judgment on the last 4 years of this government and the last 10 years of the Conservative government. And I know many Canadians just can hardly wait to cast their ballot and change the government. Now, the bad news, Mr. Speaker, is that the intolerance of this government for democratic debate continues to grow. Earlier today, we had the 89th imposition of time allocation or closure in the history of the Parliament. There has never been any government that has even come close to not respecting democratic debate. For the 89th time, they imposed closure or time allocation, Mr. Speaker. Now, the government will say, well, we're just being efficient. We don't believe in debate. But the reality is, because, Mr. Speaker, as you know, this government has had more pieces of legislation rejected by the courts than any other government.